Yeah. I'll get it though. It's right here.
Good morning. I'd ask everyone to please grab a seat. We're going to begin momentarily. Could everyone please grab a seat? We don't want you to stop the chatter, but do please grab a seat. Everyone looks amazing. Please come on in. Welcome. Good morning again. I'm going to actually invite the president of NJIT to join me up here, Tech Lim, who's going to bring us greetings on behalf of NJIT. My name is Angela Garrettson. I'm the Chief Government and Community Relations Officer. I co-hosted this event today with some amazing people. I can't wait for them to come up and say hello, but at this time, we're going to hear next from our president of NJIT, Dr. Tech Lim.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you for putting the time, talent, and treasure to make sure that this event is a success. Good morning. Welcome to NJIT. NJIT is a minority serving institution. Last year, we became an Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islander serving institution. Just a few months ago, we became a Hispanic serving institution. Thank you. If you look around the country, how many institutions are research R1, Hispanic serving, Asian American and Native American and Pacific Islander serving, and a minority serving institution is less than 10 around the country. So this is unique. I see this country moving in that direction. We're just trailblazing this effort here. So, and we couldn't have done it without all your efforts. So thank you so much. I do also want to acknowledge the partnership with the City of Newark. Thank you, Mayor Baraka, for doing that and putting your staff working with us, and then also thank you the Councilman Larry Crum. Larry, where is you? Thank you for spearheading this effort. And I also want to acknowledge the founder, president, and CEO of African American Chamber of Commerce, John Harmon. I told John that he put out a really fantastic gala that is so high energy. So I need all of you to make sure this event is high energy today. Right? Good. All right. I do also want to appreciate Denise Anderson, who is here, and she's got lots of, I heard, words of wisdom about what to say in this particular topic. In fact, just a couple of days ago, I heard from one of my trustees, Lisa Chadas, on her engagement with you and how phenomenal that we're able to attract you to this campus to share your ideas. Again, thank you for all that you do. I don't want to spend too much of your time, but this campus is part of the community. In my opinion, as Newark rise, as Essex County rise, as New Jersey rise, so does this campus. And we're here to partner with you, and we love to build mutually beneficial partnership with all of you. Again, Angela, thank you for putting this event together. And if I miss any dignitary here, Marjorie Perry, Luis, and that's right. Oh, hi, hello. Councilwoman, yeah. Thank you for coming. Anyone else I miss? It is very dangerous when you start naming names here, okay? So forgive me if I miss your name, but I really appreciate, all of you being here today, this event being able to attract so many spectacular and wonderful individuals here in Newark and also in New Jersey. This is just phenomenal. Again, thank you, and I look forward to the engagement and the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you again, Dr. Lim. And now you will hear from our Councilman Crump. But before that, we also have one of our county commissioners, Wayne Richardson. Please give him a shout out. And yes, our council president is present, and we will have a number of other dignitaries and elected officials who will be joining us today, and we will greet them upon their arrival. Councilman Crump, please join me at the dais. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Oh, I can't tell you how I'm happy this day has come. I had hair before we started this process, right? But this was such an important event that we needed to do. Let me first and foremost shout out my wife, because she's here somewhere in the building, and I can't do half of what I do, or most of what I do, without her. I don't know where she went. Is she here? Where's she? She's somewhere. There she is in the bag. And my son, who today has the patience of Job, because I appreciate that. And my sister is in from New Orleans, so I have to shout out my sister, my only blood sister. I know people claim they're my mom's relative and all that, but that's my only real sister right there. But I'll be honest, this started really right after the disparity study came out. I happened to be talking to Regina Thomas, the former Secretary of State, and we were talking about that it was, first of all, that it was finally completed, and second of all, what are we going to do now? And it just so happened a few days or maybe a week later, the African American Chamber of Commerce had a presentation on the disparity study. And at first I was talking to John. At first I wasn't going to go down to Princeton, but I said, you know what, I need to go down and hear it and see what's going on. And I went down to Princeton and I saw the numbers, the stark reality of the disparity that is going on right now in our state with state contracts and procurement process amongst minorities and women and white people generally. And I felt the moral obligation to do something here, because it's something that we can't just let go. We have to say, what's next? And how do we advocate to make sure what is next? Because it's important for us to understand that this isn't just a one-time deal. We've known that for years and years and years that there have been this disparity. And now that we actually have the study done, we need to capitalize on that. And John said the word, and I appreciate that word, leverage it. Leverage all of us here to make sure that we are in Trenton doing what we need to do. You know, there are going to be some uncomfortable conversations, and there have to be in order for us to push for equity and equality, and we have to be ready for that. I don't have a problem with the uncomfortable conversations. We may have some uncomfortable conversations down in the governor's office, in the state legislative office, but we need to have those uncomfortable conversations now to make sure that equity occurs through our state. We always talk about, the wealth gap that's going on. The procurement process and the lack of equity is one of the reasons why there's such a wealth gap in our state. And so this is an opportunity for us to do something about that. This is an opportunity for us to every person in this room, to support, to advocate, and to talk to those in power about how we make the difference and make the change for our community and for our state. So I said more than I normally say. If you all know me, I don't speak that much, but I just thought how important this was. And I want to give a shout out to, a special shout out to John Harmon, because I called him. He was on vacation somewhere, and he called me back about doing this, and I appreciate that. And I saw Ryan Haygood, and Ryan was like, "Yeah, this is from Institute of Social Justice, New Jersey Institute of Social Justice," and he was gung ho for it. And I said, if I got those two on board, then we can run with this. I called Angela. I said, can we do it at NJIT? I reached out to Carlos Medina from the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. He said he couldn't make it, unfortunately, but he sent a great person to be here, Lewis, in his stead. I spoke to Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter, who, if anyone knows, has been pushing in the state legislature to make sure this study got completed. And she'll be here a little later on. So I'm happy to be here. And these are my cards to tell me who's here that I should be announcing. We already mentioned the Council President, LaMonica McGuire, but she's my Council President, so I'll announce her again. And Deborah Smith-Gregory from the Newark chapter of the NAACP. And I appreciate all of you here. Let me say that. I just think this was such an important event to have. I appreciate everyone who agreed to be a panelist, because I think we're going to get a good broad spectrum of different positions and different perspectives. So with that being said, thank you everyone for coming. I appreciate, and also before I forget, let me thank National Action Network, all the sponsors, including National Action Network, who sponsored the food today. That's always important to say. And Steffi Bartley. So thank you everyone. I hope you gained some great information, and I hope you're ready to work after today. Thank you. I guess I could bring up the next person. And so what we're going to have to bring up is John Harmon, founder, president, and CEO of the African American Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey. Thank you.
All right, let's go. Dr. Lim said, put some energy in this place. This is not a funeral today. It is our time to go to work, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just delighted to be here, and I brought my own Amen corner with me because I'm in Newark today. I am not in Trenton. I might need some help. It might get a little crazy up in here, but we're delighted, excited to be here, and I just want to take a few moments before we bring up Dr. Anderson to get us going. Greetings to the mayor, Mayor Ras Baraka. I call him governor this morning because this is where he's going, right? I mean, listen, you either talk about it or you be about it, right? And so I think I want to thank Brother Crump for taking the baton and moving it forward. We still do too much talking in this state as a people, and we're falling behind. And so the president said, about a minority university, right? We need a minority state because it's everything but that. And we have enabled so many people to reach their goals, and then they totally forget about how they got there. We talk about, 94% of our vote, 96% of our vote, and then other people make donations or contributions. There's an inequity there. Our vote has just as much juice as the dollars that people are putting up, but they seem to be getting all the opportunities. And we got to just own up to it and be men and women about it and just have some real conversations, uncomfortable or not, but we need to have these conversations. So I'm going to lay a little groundwork before Dr. Anderson gets into the nuts and bolts of this disparity study, which was, it laid bare how black people and brown people are perceived in this state. It just laid it out. Taxation without representation. Remember, we're going to be talking about public contracts. Public contracts are funded by your tax dollars. Let's not lose sight of that. It's funded by your tax dollars, and there's some people that are getting almost 100% return on your investment. That's just straight up wrong. Taxation without representation. So, little foundational stuff here. In 2016, I met with then candidate Murphy, who was running for governor. And during that conversation, I shared with him what we deemed as the black agenda. And one of the top items on that agenda was a disparity study. And Dr. Anderson will unpack a little more about what a disparity study is and so on and so forth. And so the African American Chamber of Commerce, for those of you who've never heard of us, don't know what we do, every day we're thinking about black people. And that's not excluding other people because we need all people to make this work. But we're thinking about you. We're thinking about your poverty level. We think about your exclusion for opportunities. We think about your net worth, which is about $17,000 versus $322,000 for whites. We think about how do we get a paradigm shift to put you in a better place. So let that marinate a little bit. So in this meeting, we went over what we deemed was important to black people to get them in a better place, and he acknowledged that that's what he would be about. And then he was elected in 2017 under the banner Stronger and Fairer Economy. 2017, the Port Authority had just concluded its disparity study. And the numbers were relatively the same then as they are now, right? So we suggested to the administration, would it be possible to annex those numbers to kind of expedite this disparity study process to show us, the 94% that voted for him, that you heard us and you're reacting to it. To this day, I have not gotten a good answer whether that could have been done, but the bottom line, it was not done. 2017, 2020, the disparity study was commissioned. The study speaks to the availability and the utilization of people to do these opportunities. Again, I don't want to get into the presentation. So 3 years go by. I don't see the urgency. It wasn't done. Then finally, it gets commissioned, and now it's done. We lost 6 to 7 years. The governor got his second term. His second term. No accountability, no reciprocity. But if you go back a little further, Governor McGreevey, his first executive order, and this is where we're going to get some consternation. He stood up project labor agreements. We negotiated with him for a $5 million carve-out. That means that you did not have to be a signatory to the unions to participate on contracts up to $5 million. All this is going to bear out in this study. Along that continuum, we had a school construction initiative that was court-ordered because our schools in urban districts, 31 of them, their schools were not up to snuff. They put $8.6 billion to upgrade schools, and then 50% of the schools got done, all the money was spent. The school districts that did the preliminary work were not allowed to distribute the money. The state pulled the money, stood up the School Development Authority. I'm just giving you a little history because this didn't just start now. This has been going on a long time. And so then the suburban district said, hey, we're not going to vote for more money unless we get included. Another $4 billion were allocated. So when I talk about the $17,000 network for blacks, none of that money came over to make those numbers better. Okay, you still with me? So I just want that to marinate a little bit. The other thing, the reason I say we get a lot of pushback when you talk about the trades, trust me, we have nothing against the trades. Those men and women do great work. Our issue is we're paying taxes and we have no equity there. We have no large representation. And the labor force, maybe in some communities, but not across the state, and trade-oriented black and Hispanic businesses are non-existent. That's the issue. And so most of this money went that way. And so we'll talk about that a little later on. The last point. President Obama had a $25 million carve-out on the project labor agreement. So any project up to $25 million on the federal level, you did not have to be a signatory to the trades, however you paid prevailing wage, etc. President Biden is now at $35 million. New Jersey is still at $5 million almost 20 plus years ago. So as we get into the negotiations of change, that has to be an intentional conversation. If they eat, we have to eat. They're having 5 plates, and we're not even getting an appetizer. So with that said, give a round of applause for this amazing woman, Dr. Denise Anderson. And I'm going to remain up here, and I may add a little color context to some of the comments, but we're off and running, and the mayor has a hard stop, so we need to get going. All right, let's get engaged.
All right. Good morning, good people. Thank you, John, fellow Board of Directors, AACC&J staff, and AACC&J members for your tireless support and advocacy for black businesses and the black community. Moreover, thank you, Honorable Lawrence Crump, for graciously collaborating and coordinating with us to ensure a platform in New Jersey's largest city to continue this vital discussion. Further, I thank the Honorable Roz Baraka, Louis De La Hoz, Ryan Haywood, Marjorie Perry, and the Honorable Shavonda Sumter for joining us and lending us your expertise in identifying swift and actionable solutions for making New Jersey equitable for all and not just for some. There is a steep and ever-expanding gap between white and male-owned businesses in comparison to all black-owned businesses that negatively impact the lives and the livelihood of black communities in this state. We will examine the New Jersey disparity study to ensure we all understand the fierce urgency of now relating to black businesses' accessibility to contracts with the state of New Jersey. Making sure the clicker works. All right. So, black-owned businesses encompass the black community in New Jersey. There is no separation because the economic stability of black-owned businesses and black employment rates are the nexus between all other determinants for our community. That's education access and quality, That's health access and quality, our neighborhoods and built environments, and social and community contexts. There are 1.2 million blacks in New Jersey, and we have the highest poverty rates at 16.3%, and an unemployment rate of 8.1%. And that's a direct correlation to our economic stability. 41% of black households own their homes, compared to 77% of white households in the state. The black and white home ownership gap is about 35%. As John mentioned, the average net worth for black New Jerseyans is $17,000, and for white New Jerseyans, their net worth is $322,000. And lastly, illustrated here, we see that only 3.5% of the 88,000 black-owned businesses in New Jersey have employees, which infers growth stagnation. All of these measures, poverty rates, unemployment rates, home ownership, net worth, they all speak to our economic stability as blacks in New Jersey. We will see in this review of the disparity study how the inability to fairly do business with the state of New Jersey impacts the growth of minority and women-owned businesses throughout the state, as reflected in the small percentage of black-owned businesses with employees, which is an indicator of growth. Also, during this presentation, I will discuss time intervals, which reveal that black-owned businesses have been systemically and intentionally deprived of opportunities to do business with the state of New Jersey for decades, and this practice persists. So the New Jersey Disparity Study was released on January 23rd of this year. The study was conducted by Mason Tillman and Associates, and they examined whether the state's funds were spent on past contracts in a manner that further existing discrimination against minority firms in various sectors. So I'm going to describe the included sectors shortly. The study period was a retrospective look back into a 5-year period. The 5-year period was state fiscal years July 1st, 2015 to July 30th, 2020. This was a mixed method study, meaning it intentionally included numbers such as descriptive statistics and analytics, and it also included the voices of minority-owned businesses in the state of New Jersey. Noteworthy is that the inclusion of both is important. The numbers tell us the what, while the voices and the stories tell us why and how. An intentional framework was used, in the study's design, collection of information, and interpretation. It is the framework that tells us a comprehensive story about what's happening with minority-owned businesses in the state. And this framework should support the state's efforts in designing and implementing, monitoring, and being accountable for comprehensive and swift solutions. The framework is as follows: establishing active or passive discrimination, establishing systemic discriminatory exclusion, which includes an analysis of the geographic market, current versus historical evidence, and statistical evidence, including the availability and utilization of minority-owned businesses in the state. There's anecdotal evidence, which again is the voice of minority-owned businesses here, and there's remedial action scheme, which is the acknowledgement of sufficient evidence to support systemic findings and the need for corrective actions. So I, in turn, am summarizing the results of the New Jersey Disparity Study using the framework as just described. So first with the framework is active and passive discrimination. So let's first define active and passive discrimination. An entity will be considered an active participant if the evidence shows it has created barriers that actively exclude. That's active discrimination. An entity will be considered a passive participant in the private sector discriminatory practices if it has infused tax dollars into that discriminatory industry, passive discrimination. The evidence will demonstrate that the state of New Jersey has been an active and passive participant in discrimination towards minority and women-owned firms. Next in the framework is establishing systemic discriminatory exclusion, and it has three parts: the geographic market, followed by current versus historical context, and then statistical evidence. So we will examine the geographic market first. So we are talking about the New Jersey state government. So the market area in this study is the entire state. Looking at the top chart, table 5.8, you will see that over 1/3 of New Jersey state contracts were awarded to businesses out of the state during the state period, all right? So that's state fiscal years 2015 to 2020. So that's problem number one. Over 1/3 of New Jersey state contracts go to out-of-state vendors. That is only justifiable if the state of New Jersey can validate that there was no eligible entities in New Jersey who could satisfactorily complete the scope of work, meet the contracting requirements. Tables 5.5, 5.6, and 5.7 illustrate the percentage of out-of-state contracts by industry during the study period. Respectively, out-of-state contracts during the study period were 6% for construction, 32% for professional services, and 40% for goods and services. I will describe the industries included in this study shortly. We're staying with the framework, establishing systemic discriminatory exclusion. We just covered the geographic market, and now we will explore current versus historical evidence. With this framework component, pre- and post-Minority Women Business Enterprise Program data is assessed to analyze whether a disparity would exist without a Minority Women Business Enterprise Program. Currently, New Jersey does not have an MWBE program. There is a certification, but not a set-aside. And a set-aside means that a dollar amount or a percentage gets awarded to minority, women-owned, and other diverse businesses, such as economically disadvantaged, etc. However, there are two set-aside programs in existence. The Small Business Program set aside at least 25% of the total dollar value of state contracts and is an overall program goal for each state contracting agency. Then there is the race-neutral set-aside program for service-disabled, veteran-owned businesses, which set aside at least 3% of the contracts awarded to eligible service-disabled, veteran-owned businesses. Not mentioned in this study, but found during my research, is that in 1985, New Jersey had a minority women business-owned program. The current set-aside for small businesses was divided into 15% for small businesses, 7% for minority-owned firms, and 3% for women-owned firms. This program was established in 1985 because the administration at that time knew this was a problem. 39 years later, we are still in this predicament in this state. Almost 40 years of starving minority and women-owned businesses, our communities, and our families. The same legal reference throughout the study, the Croson decision in 1989, called into question the legality of set-asides across the country, including New Jersey. So resultingly, the program was suspended in 1989. Governor Florio signed Executive Order Number 213 in 1989, establishing the State of New Jersey Governor's Study Commission on Discrimination in Public Works. The commission determined that the Minority Women Business Enterprise Program was justified, and it appeared to resume. However, the program was terminated by Governor McGreevey in 2003 via Executive Order Number 71 as a result of a lawsuit. In 2006, Governor Corzine, via Executive Order Number 34, established the Division of Minority and Women Business Development. The charge of the office was to set utilization goals, track and monitor, develop standards and procedures for all state agencies, including authorities, colleges, universities, and assign minority and women business enterprise liaisons at all state agencies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Unfortunately, the trail stops with zero evidence of the function of this office being fulfilled, and definitely zero evidence of a positive impact on minority, women-owned businesses in New Jersey. So in summary, regarding current versus historical evidence, there is a dichotomy. Currently in New Jersey, we are on the side of race-neutral measures and policies related to procurement and contracting with the state, which is not serving diverse businesses. And on the other side of the spectrum are race and gender-conscious measures that ensure and monitor the inclusion of diverse businesses. This is the direction we must go in as a starting point for righting the wrongs of the past and present. Now we will explore the last segment of establishing systemic discriminatory exclusion, which is the statistical evidence. First, within statistical evidence is the availability of minority women business enterprises in New Jersey. Availability was measured by the willingness and capacity of minority women business enterprises in New Jersey. Willingness was determined by identifying minority and women business enterprises in the state. So to the left of the screen, minority women business enterprises were identified through state contracting agencies' records, government certification directories, business owners who participated in the study by lending their voices, telling their stories about procurement in New Jersey, and through business and trade association membership lists. Capacity was measured by analyzing the size of prime contracts, stratifying the largest contracts by industry, analyzing the industry, the frequency of contract awards, etc. So the results of this study concluded that minority and women business enterprises in New Jersey are qualified, willing, and able to perform state contracts. Before moving on to the data, I want to briefly review New Jersey's procurement context over the next several slides. So the report provided 4 New Jersey industry definitions: construction, architecture and engineering, professional services, and goods and services. The study included all categories except architecture and engineering, and I don't recall seeing a reason for the exclusion of architecture and engineering from the study. So here, I want you to note the differences in the procurement process based on industry, contractual amount, and solicitation method. So in construction, contracts $65,000 and lower require 3 sealed bid proposals. For construction contracts over $65,000, there is a request for bids. This slide shows that states' procurement process for professional services and goods and services are the same. Contracts $1,000 and under require no solicitation. Contracts over $1,000 but below $17,500 require 3 verbal quotes. Contracts over $17,500 but less than $40,000 requires 3 written proposals. And contracts over $40,000 require a request for bid proposals. So let's make our way into the utilization data and review the soul of New Jersey state procurement. For context, let's define the disparity index. Essentially, the disparity index measures whether minority and women-owned businesses are securing public or government contracts in proportion to their availability and their representation in the state of New Jersey. Let me say this another way. Blacks comprise approximately 13% of New Jersey population. Therefore, our proportion of state contracts should be approximately 13%. In the context of this study, highly utilized businesses are the small group of prime contractors in New Jersey receiving the most prime contract dollars. So illustrated to the left of the screen, during the study period, July 1st, 2015 to June 30th, 2020, New Jersey awarded over $11 billion, with a B, dollars in contracts in the construction industry. 35 of 669 total businesses received 70% of the total construction prime contract dollars. Further, the most highly used prime contractors were 16 Caucasian male-owned businesses, which received 50% of the total construction prime contract dollars. Illustrated to the left again, Table 3.6 shows New Jersey awarded over $4 billion in contracts in the professional services industry. Table 3.11 illustrates that 49 of the 1,311 businesses received 70% of the professional services prime contract dollars. A small group, approximately 4% of prime contractors, received most of the professional services prime contract dollars awarded by state contracting agencies. To the bottom right, Table 3.12 reveals that the most highly used prime contractors were 15 Caucasian male-owned and 2 Asian American-owned businesses. Again, to the left, Table 3.6, we see New Jersey awarded over $3 billion in contracts in goods and services industry. Table 3.14 illustrates that 189 of the 2,764, or approximately 7% of the businesses, received 70% of the total goods and services prime contract dollars. To the bottom right, Table 3.15 reveals that the most highly used prime contractors were 42 Caucasian male-owned, 1 Caucasian female-owned, and 2 Asian American-owned businesses. These 45 contractors received prime contract dollars for 50% of the total goods and services. These contracts range from approximately $40,000 to $110 million. So, given that the highly utilized businesses were not inclusive of black businesses, you may be wondering just how many prime contracts did black businesses receive during the study period. This slide reveals that in the construction industry, black women received 2 contracts in 5 years, or 0.07%. And black men received 11 contracts in 5 years, or 0.36%. In the professional services industry, black women received 8 contracts, or 0.14% of all contracts during the 5-year study period, while black men received 57 contracts, or 1.01% of all professional services prime contracts. The last 2 slides focused on prime contracts. So what about subcontracts? Well, in the construction industry, 1 black woman, or 0.03%, received a subcontract in construction during the 5-year period, and 29 black men, or 0.79%. Related to subcontracts for professional services, black women received 10 contracts, or 0.91%, and black men received 5, or 0.45% of subcontracts in the professional services industry during the 5-year study period. So in summation, between all industries, construction, professional services, and goods and services, for both prime and subcontracts, black male and female-owned businesses never rose above 1% for the entire 5-year study period. I'm going to let that sit with you.
Yes.
How can you survive in business for 5 years you get no opportunity, and you're paying taxes every year. Let that marinate. Back to you, Doc.
Okay. So to quote Jersey's own Senator Cory Booker, we must ensure that economic opportunity is inclusive and accessible to all Americans, regardless of race or background. The growth of black businesses is not just a matter of entrepreneurship, it's a matter of economic justice. And in the words of the late, great John Lewis, the challenges facing black entrepreneurs are not just about access to capital. They're about dismantling structural barriers and creating an environment where every business has an equal opportunity to thrive. The statistics and the percentages presented over the past several slides were descriptive. And although a disparity was pretty obvious, whereas black men and women never rose above 1% of prime or subcontract during the 5-year study period, not all disparities are easily noticeable without further statistical analysis. Nonetheless, the study facilitators conducted statistical analysis to verify disparities between groups. The table displayed on this slide helps us interpret the statistical analysis. Any outcome with an asterisk indicates underutilization, and any outcome with a dagger, which looks like a cross, indicates overutilization. So this slide focuses on the disparity in construction contracts. To the left of the screen, we have ethnicity, followed by ethnicity and gender. And to the right of the screen, we have the statistical test results relating to whether a disparity exists. There are many asterisks validating underutilization and 2 daggers indicating overutilization. The interpretation of the last slide is as follows. For prime contractors and construction in New Jersey, there is a disparity for blacks, Asians, Hispanic, and white women. For subcontractors in construction, there is a disparity for blacks and Asians. Related to professional services, prime and subcontracts, for prime contractors and professional services in New Jersey, there is a disparity for blacks, Asians, Hispanics, and white women. For subcontractors in professional services, there is a disparity for blacks, Hispanics, and white women. For prime contracts in goods and services in New Jersey, there is a disparity for blacks, Asians, Hispanics, and white women. And listen to me carefully. For at least one industry, prime or subcontract dollars, there was no disparity for Asian, Hispanic, and white women. However, there was a disparity for black men and women in every industry, both prime and subcontract dollars. When I initially presented this study, I quoted James Baldwin, and each time I present it, it penetrates deeper. To be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a rage almost all the time. There are disparities under and within the minority umbrella. And because of this documented fact that we've all known all along, by the way, I'm confident in saying that we, black folks, are not interested in being lumped into the overarching category of minority. We need solutions that specifically address the black and white disparity and the black versus other diverse populations disparities. In this slide, we are examining disparities in business ownership and business earnings. For blacks, we have proportionate representation in construction and professional services businesses, but a disparity in goods and services business ownership. However, there is a disparity in the construction, professional, and goods and services relating to business earnings. We can certainly see how that is supported with 1% or less of all state contracts in these industries. The persistent disparities in the growth of Black businesses underscore the need for targeted policies and investments to address systemic barriers and create a more level playing field. Stacey Abrams. So let's move on to the anecdotal evidence, or the voices and the stories of minority and women-owned businesses in New Jersey. The report provided the criteria for persuasive anecdotal evidence requirements as listed in the slide. So 1, that is gathered from minority contractors, preferably those that are qualified. 2, concerns specific allegations of discrimination. 3, involve the actions of governmental officials. 4, involve events within the relevant jurisdiction's market area. 5, discuss the harm the improper conduct inflicted on the businesses in question. And 6, collectively reveal that discriminatory exclusion and impaired contracting opportunities are systemic rather than isolated or sporadic. Again, the anecdotal or qualitative or voices of those impacted provide the human context to the statistics presented. It often provides the how and or the why the issue exists and persists. There were 6 virtual business community meetings in September 2022. There were also in-depth one-on-one interviews. Participants included minority groups, white women, and white male-owned prime contractors. Potential participants were identified and obtained from utilized businesses, vendor lists, certification directories, business and trade association membership lists, and chambers of commerce directories. Individuals identified from this recruitment mechanism received an email inviting participation. Further, formal meeting notices were published and shared on various media platforms. 551 business owners logged in to at least one of the 6 virtual meetings and completed a survey. Themes emerged from the discussions with business owners reflected in the first column of the table, and I selected one quote to support each theme. I will read these quotes because I believe business owners can attest to these expressions and experiences. So, it is discriminatory and institutional racism. The finding was racial barriers. Everybody pays taxes, but only white people can get business with the government. That is why they are the ones who have large, successful companies. The people who are in decision-making positions have the power and authority to award the RFPs to people who look like them, not who look like African Americans or Latinas. We know that they are getting the lion's share of the business, and unless there are state mandates to include minority businesses, nothing will change. Theme 2, preferred contractors. The state already has an idea of who they want to work with before advertising the request for proposal. That is why they have very specific requirements in their RFPs. There are only 1 or 2 companies that can meet the requirements. Issuing an RFP just to allow businesses to respond with no intention of using them is not fair. We spend up to 40 hours to respond to an RFP. Sometimes it is much more than that. Finding, minority subcontractors are listed but underutilized. Our firm has been listed as a subcontractor without receiving work. It has happened many times in New Jersey. They do not have a process in place to prevent it. Finding, onerous bid and RFP process. The RFPs can be a little bit daunting. It takes at least 2 to 3 days before I finally figure out what it is they want. By the time I get through reading all of the requirements, I am still at a loss because now I missed the deadline for the supplemental documents. And by the time I get to the point where it is time to submit questions, they are not quick to respond. Finding, limited access to contract information. The state should send notices to minority business enterprises just like New York State does. They send us notices advising us to look out for upcoming jobs. Finding, inadequate time to respond. The lead time is all over the place. Sometimes we will get 2 weeks, while other agencies will provide a month and a half. There is no consistency. Sometimes they ask for questions too quickly. They also may be due within 1 week of issuing the RFP. The RFP process probably needs to be slightly longer. Finding late payments. Our prime contractors do not pay us within 30 days. It usually takes 3 to 6 months. Depending on the agency, it could take up to 6 months. Finding a statewide Minority Women Business Enterprise Program. Having an MBE program with goals would be a good start. The Minority Women Business Enterprise Program should be as inclusive as possible. They should follow State of New York's Minority Women Business Enterprise Program, but setting goals will not do any good unless the goals are enforced. And that means they have to be monitored, and agencies have to be accountable for meeting the goals. Finding pre-qualification challenges. The process for pre-qualifications was extremely exhaustive. And finding other recommendations. They could do a Zoom class on how to seek work from the state. It should be readily available for everybody, not just a select few people who already know how to do it. So the last component of the study framework is the remedial action scheme. And as a reminder, it is the acknowledgement of sufficient evidence to support systemic findings and the need for corrective actions. The documented evidence in this report supports narrowly tailored, race and gender conscious remedies for the underutilization of minority and women-owned businesses in New Jersey. And this bears repeating, narrowly tailored, to include specifics for Black men and Black women who are at the bottom under the minority umbrella. Again, disparities need to be addressed between Blacks and whites and within minority groups. This is not only equity, this is justice, fairness. Casting the proverbial catch-all wide net is not working for all, which is what the practice has been. We need specific solutions for different populations based on the data and their needs. Regardless of how we are classified, lumping us as minority does not make us monolithic. So we've examined how other states prioritize and put teeth and grit behind their minority and women business enterprise programs. I want to share at a high level promising components of various minority women business enterprise programs that the New Jersey state government can learn from and even enhance to make procurement with the state of New Jersey fair and equitable. Set-aside programs. Designating a percentage of contracts specified for minority-owned, women-owned, and other underrepresented businesses. Outreach and education. Implementing programs to educate diverse suppliers on government procurement processes, helping them navigate and complete effectively. Incentives and preferences. Providing incentives or preferences for government agencies to award contracts to diverse suppliers, encouraging greater inclusion. Data collection and reporting. So, establishing systems to collect and analyze data on supplier diversity, ensuring accountability and transparency in government procurement. Capacity building. Offering resources and support to help diverse businesses build capacity and meet the requirements for government contracts. The Prompt Payment Act requires state agencies to pay correctly submitted, undisputed invoices within 45 calendar days of initial receipt. State departments must automatically calculate and pay the appropriate late payment penalties if the requirement is unmet. This is legislated in California. They have reciprocity partners. Prime contractors benefit from your certification when they subcontract with your business. Mentor Protege Program. This is in Illinois. It provides various types of support to create more equitable access to economic growth while meeting the state's business enterprise program contracting goals for minority, women, and persons with disabilities-owned businesses. Minnesota set goals that require prime contractors to subcontract a portion of the work to certified targeted groups of economically disadvantaged or veteran-owned small businesses on contracts for construction or consulting services. And in Ohio, they provide financial and bonding assistance to business. And in our backyard, next door, are minority women business enterprise programs for the New York, New Jersey Port Authority and New York State. The New York, New Jersey Port Authority has set aside programs for minority business enterprises at 20%, women business enterprises at 10%, and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses at 3%. Further, they have initiatives such as vendor price preference, subcontracting specifications such as diversity within diversity, informal purchase bids, and various architecture, engineering, and construction academies. In New York State, Governor Hochul has passed legislation that prevents fraud and abuse within the MWBE program. It allows the use of the MWBE Development and Lending Program funds to refinance existing debts, and contracts up to $1 million to MWBEs without a formal competitive process. So the word for today and every subsequent day until New Jersey does better is intentionality. Somebody say intentionality. Intentionality. Because the programs, as I described, are intentionally designed to address overt and covert racism and discrimination. So what do we want? But before that, let's examine the business case for DEI. DEI is under attack. Diversity and equity officer positions are disappearing. The SCOTUS decision regarding race consideration in college admissions has provided a playbook for other anti-DEI initiatives. The teaching of our history is under attack in our schools, and we have Black leaders in all sectors under personal attack, being directly or indirectly forced out of positions or literally dying trying to disrupt structural barriers or institutional racism. Inclusion and representation have improved adaptability and profits and created a better customer experience. To compete in the global economy, businesses must champion diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, when a business has representation from various races or ethnicities and other demographics such as gender, it increases the collective intelligence of teams in identifying and meeting the needs of consumers. The representation I speak of is pivotal throughout the organization, and it includes the board seats and executive positions, not just direct service positions. In a report by McKinsey last December, they found a 39% increased likelihood of outperformance for business in the top quartile of ethnic representation. Companies representing women exceeding 30% are significantly more likely to outperform those with 30% or fewer financially. Companies in the top quartile for both gender and ethnic diversity in executive teams are, on average, more likely to outperform their peers. Companies in the top quartile for board gender and ethnic diversity are 27% and 13% more likely to outperform those in the bottom quartile, respectively. Mark Cuban stated recently, DEI means looking where others don't for great people and businesses. It means working with them to put them in a position to succeed and accepting what is unique about them. Over the past several years, when we've talked about DEI, we've talked about George Floyd, right? And the rising and the raising of the consciousness due to what we witnessed in 2020. I like analogies, y'all. So when I think about what this study has showed us in relevance to what we saw with George Floyd, New Jersey state government has its knee on the necks of Black businesses, okay? And that's active discrimination. And then what they allowed to happen with these white male CEO businesses Those were the officers that stood by and watched. That's the passive discrimination. The essence of time and in the interim. So John told you he met with and discussed the need for a disparity study with then candidate for Governor Phil Murphy. The governor was elected to office in 2017 with 94% of the black vote, and this disparity study was not commissioned until December 2020. So yes, the world was brought to its knees by the COVID-19 pandemic in March of 2020, but what about 2018? What about 2019? Other disparities, like John said, had been done, such as the Port Authority disparity study in 2017. So why not use that to encourage or direct state agencies to be intentional regarding diverse contracting? Why not include language in contracts related to diverse suppliers? Why not unbundle contracts? Why not implement a bidding by revenues or expense systems? Why not emphasize the trades? We needed something while waiting for a disparity report published 8 years after the original conversation. Allow me to remind you that there was an MWBE program in 1985, obviously because there was a need then, just like it is a need now. And here we are, 39 years later, with 1% of state contracts, but 13% of New Jersey's population. The math ain't mathin'. You cannot leave institutions and people to their own devices to do the right thing. And arguably, the most consequential example of this is redlining, right? Yes, institutions, the banks, and realtors, the individuals, left to their own devices, successfully hyper-segregated blacks to urban centers across this country, and residential segregation has been and remains a significant factor for all other determinants we experience as a community. In this case, the state of New Jersey is the institution, and the CEOs of the private sector, aka the individuals who secured all of those prime contracts and did not willfully subcontract with minority and women-owned businesses, are the responsible parties for the exclusion of black-owned businesses participating in contracting with the state of New Jersey. So, where do we go? John met with the governor and his team in February last month. This followed an earlier meeting between John, several AACC&J board members, and members from the Murphy team in the Department of Treasury. Since then, the African American Chamber of Commerce New Jersey Disparity Study Task Force was established, co-chaired by myself and Philanda Nixon, Chief of Public Policy and External Affairs at AACC&J. We have approximately 12 members on the task force. The task force is putting together recommended best practices to ensure more equitable participation for black businesses in public procurement. We want to reestablish an MWBE program with set-asides and goals and monitoring and teeth and grit. We want a seat at the table while designing, implementing, and monitoring said program, not about us without us. I want to encourage you to join the African American Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey if you are not currently a member. And if you are a member, please continue to stay with us on the journey. You don't have to own your own business to become an AACC&J member. If you are a black-owned business owner, you should be an AACC&J member. If you are black and an employee, you should join AACC&J too and work with us to ensure your employer works with black-owned businesses. And if you, that right there. And if you're an ally or have good business acumen, and I'm defining that as recognizing DEI as right, or you recognize the profits in it, in that case, you too should be an AACC&J member. I'd also like to remind you that AACC&J is working on behalf of all black businesses, whether you are a member or not. When we receive wins for black businesses, such as policy change, it isn't earmarked or reserved for AACC&J members only. All black businesses benefit. So with that in mind, support AACC&J with your membership, which helps us support you while you continue to work on and in your business. We are counting on all of you who are listening to the sound of my voice to join us in our grassroots apolitical strategy. As a reminder, we are apolitical and endorse no political sides. We are on the side of Black business opportunity and prosperity. So what does that strategy look like? It looks like us sending you the language that you can use to email or call your state legislator, including how to identify your district legislators. It looks like requesting you to sign a petition as an individual and or a business entity supporting AACC&J policy priorities. It also involves providing you with social media messaging and inclusive hashtags. We want you to be able to, tag us in your social media posts. We also seek that you help us to get on the agenda for your local school board meetings, county meetings, civic community engagement meetings, etc. Again, we want justice and equity for Black businesses in the state, and more to come on this. And there are some other things the Murphy administration could do now, too. They could track and monitor right now, because the study period was between 2015 and 2020. We are in 2024, and we know that the discriminatory practices have persisted. And that idea about having minority and women business enterprise liaisons at all state agencies, that could happen now too. This does not require hiring 20 new people, in which recruitment of state jobs is challenging and the hiring process can be 6 months or better, just like it takes to pay an invoice, right? So every state agency has a procurement office. So they can assign an MWBE liaison in the procurement departments at all state agencies, the authorities, the institutions, the colleges, the universities, set expectations, train and monitor folks. It's basic program management. So before I turn this back over to John, I do want to say this is Women's History Month, right? It is, right? And so I'm speaking to the ladies right now, so just give me a second. I want you to know that I see you. We are tired, right? We are always in a battle. We leave corporations and government jobs to start our own businesses because we are tired of the double negative, Black and female. We start our businesses to work hard for ourselves, just as we've been working hard for others, only to find ourselves in New Jersey earning less than 1% of state contracts in 5 years. I got one word and 4 syllables for that: disrespectful. Say it, disrespectful. The most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the Black woman. And the most neglected person in America is the Black woman, Malcolm X. The Black woman's economic stability. Well, we're more likely to be divorced or never married and single mothers. Our socioeconomic status is not a protective factor. We have more to do with our income, such as single parenthood and fiscal caretaking responsibilities for extended family members. Then there is the gender pay disparity. In 2022, Black women earned 70% as much as white men. So less pay is more likely without the benefit of 2 adult income earning households with more responsibilities with our money. Let me hear you say, tired. Tired. The Black woman's social and community context. Our boys and men are over 50% of the incarcerated population. Black and Hispanic men are the only racial and ethnic group where homicide is a top 10 leading cause of death, and yes, the disproportionate police brutality contributes to this number too. Let me hear you say tired. Tired. Black women's health. Name a chronic illness, and we likely experience it at a higher rate than women of other races, ethnicities, including identifying the disease at a later stage with a greater chance of death. We talk about weathering, whereas Black women of higher socioeconomic status, we had to fight, claw, bleed, sweat, and with tears to get where we are and to stay here. Our bodies don't forget the associated stress and trauma, and it's killing us literally. One of the highly utilized markers of life expectancy is maternal mortality. And here in New Jersey, Black women are almost 7 times more likely than white women to die from maternity-related complications. And a Black baby is nearly 3 times more likely than a white baby to die before their first birthday. And let me be clear, community baby showers will not save us. So, Black queens, again, I see you. It is exhausting being Black and female, yet I am still speaking to you because we get it done. Not because we always want to, but because if not us, then who? We are king and queen makers. We put presidents into the White House, senators into U.S. Congress, governors into heads of state, and don't you forget it. And don't let them forget it. They don't talk about the Black vote for naught. Our lives and livelihoods depend on it. Be stingy with your vote. Be discerning with your vote. Make our lawmakers earn it. When discussing civic engagement, I emphasize the importance of voting at the local and state levels because local and state laws can enhance or worsen our quality of life. Here in New Jersey, our government has failed Black businesses. Uneasy lies the head that wears the crown, queens. We need you in this fight with us because we get it done. And I'll close with this quote from T.D. Jakes. Big ideas come from forward-thinking people who challenge the norm, think outside the box, and invent the world they see inside rather than submitting to the limitations of current dilemmas. Thank you.
Whoa, whoa, give her a hand.
You can introduce the people.
Yeah, okay.
And so you see why I did that, why we had this panel discussion and presentation. Thank you, Dr. Anderson. That was amazing. That was amazing. Let me real quick just make a couple of announcements. I know we have Mayor Dahlia Vertrice of Hillside here. We have Rick Thigpen, Senior Vice President of Corporate Citizenship from PSE&G, one of my mentors, too. I learned a lot from him. And I'll be remiss if I didn't mention some of the city officials. Director of Health and Wellness, Ketlin Alsbrook. Over there. And our Deputy Mayor of Economic and Housing Development is walking right there, Allison Ladd. And I always got to mention a wonderful person, Terry Tucker, former Chief of Staff to our beloved Lieutenant Governor, Sheila Oliver. And I just have to mention Ferlanda's name, because I did say I bothered her a lot, and she said I didn't, but I know I did. Thank you for everything you did. So we're going to, in the interest of time and respect everybody's time, we're going to jump right into the panel discussion, okay? Is that all right? And then we get to eat? All right, thank you. So I'll leave it up to John to introduce.
Great job. Give Brother Crump a round of applause as the panelists come up. And I would be remiss if I didn't, formally acknowledge some of my team. I alluded to them earlier, but we have the chair of our board, Mr. Gary Mann, here. Stand up, Gary. Let him see you, brother.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
Our vice chair, Tamisha Smith.
I'm going to be up here for 10 minutes.
And you heard about our chief of external affairs and public policy, Philanda Nixon Esquire. And so we have two organizations, our New York State Black Business Alliance, the chairwoman of that group, is Ms. Tanya Freeman, Esquire. She's also here. We got more women and men in leadership. That's for a reason, because they make things happen. So, we're going to get right into the panel. And I know the mayor has a hard stop, but I'm going to ask each of you panelists to be mindful of time. We want some concise answers. We can keep answers 2 to 3 minutes. I think we can get a lot covered in that time, if that's okay with you all. I don't have the power to turn your mic off. I don't want to do that. But the folks are engaged, and so let's get right to it. You have the Honorable Ras Baraka, the Mayor of City of Newark, New Jersey's largest city. He's also a candidate for governor for the state of New Jersey. We got the Honorable Shavonda Sumter, Assemblywoman, 33rd Legislative District. Ryan Haygood, Esquire, President, Chief Executive Officer, New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. My brother Luis, the hell with you. Delahose. He's always picking with me. I'm getting you back. First Vice President, Regional Director, Community Lending for New Jersey Valley Bank, but he's also one of the leaders over at the New Jersey State Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Give him a round of applause. Marjorie Perry, President and CEO of MZM Construction. All right, we're going to go right to the home court. And then I'm going to start with the mayor. And then, Ryan, I'm going to come to you with this question. First question. First question. We heard the study. We heard the disparity. We're feeling the outrage. Mayor, how did we get here?
How did we get here? Well, I wanted to talk a little about a few solutions, but honestly, I think we all know how we got here. We didn't come on the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, that's for sure. Unless we was at the bottom. But you know, I think just historic and systemic, deliberate exclusion and racism, which means that our remedies have to be deliberate and intentional. The problem is that when you try to do these things, people make you believe that what you're doing is wrong, that it's illegal even. So you have a lot of officials, bureaucrats that are not elected, that are in a lot of these positions, who believe if they move along these lines that they're doing things that are not proper. And you trying to convince them that this is what we must do is part of the struggle as well. And some of the people look like you because they have been convinced that to fix this thing will get them in imminent trouble. Right? And that is a heavy object to move. You know, because we try to move it every day. That's a heavy object move. And that's the same thing with politics. So you have to understand that there's no politics without economics, and there's no economics without politics, right? You know, it's just clear. So your decisions and choices you make are incredibly important. The politics of the streets that I grew up on, you know, your sneakers was yours as long as you could keep them. Amen. And the politics of the community is what made people not bother you as opposed to somebody else. You can't mess with him. This guy's, you know, such and such and such. He's with us. That's the politics. That's what politics does. It's supposed to defend your community and you to do the things that you need to get accomplished. So that's really where we are. Hopefully I get a chance to talk about some of the solutions.
We're going to come back to you. Give him a round of applause. All right. Mr. Ryan Haygood.
Can we just give Dr. Anderson a round of applause one more time? That was, you know, there's so much to take from that sobering and thorough and exhaustive report, and the word that stuck out to me that she lifted up was intentionality, which, to her point and the mayor's point, you all live the experience reflected in those numbers, and you don't have that result unless there is already intentionality.
Right.
That what those numbers reflect is a design to produce exactly that result, which separates us from the very best things in the state and connects us to the most challenging. And so I asked Terry Tucker, the mighty Terry Tucker, for permission to share this, and I appreciate that Dr. Anderson brought her into the room. And John mentioned the 94% rally, and I just want to say a quick word of context because it makes this conversation real to us in the room. So when the governor won the election, to John's point, he received 94% of the black vote the first time, and I think it was 96% the second time. He only received 43% of the white vote. And so he doesn't win the election to the State House without this near unanimous support of black people. And so a group of us met with him to talk about what the 94% means to him. And I said some version of what I said to him. I said, well, Governor, you received 94% of the black vote in the context of black people in New Jersey already facing some of the worst racial disparities in every direction: health, wealth, criminal justice entanglement, separation from contracts. In light of this near unanimous support you received, Governor Murphy, what's your specific plan to empower black people? And to be honest, he looked at me somewhat curiously, and he wasn't sure, like, if I was asking it as a way to flatter him that he received such support, or that he understood a responsibility connected to that support. And he said some version of, well, I received 94% of the black vote. He said this back to me. And I said, yes, but what is the plan connected to a responsibility to black people? And he mentioned the disparity study. You follow me? And this, black people, is us. This is specific to us. We have gotten so used to big harm. We live in an environment, the pandemic, COVID, police pandemic, we live in a space of harm. And if we're not careful, very often we think of our existence in terms of harm reduction as a strategy, but rarely do we get to a space of winning. And so we articulate to the governor big harm and ask him his idea, and he articulates, well, the early strategy is to study what you've just described. And you see the disconnect, right? And Dr. Anderson described the scope, the arc of that study. It was 7 years, which lifts up the way in which we're separated from government contracts. And what's ironic, to Dr. Anderson's point, is that a third of our contracts go out of state. Even the report itself, though authored by a black firm, was authored by a black firm in California. So there's consistency, and part of the charge, going back to the 94% rally and the late legendary Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, is after that meeting, we were in the elevator, the group of us who met with him, and we actually asked, did the governor just chin check us? Like, did he just remind us of the support our people gave him to get him where he is? And does he not understand what that means, what the responsibility is? And so I called the lieutenant governor, and I described what happened. She's the lieutenant governor to the guy we just met with. She's in the state, you follow me? She's in there, and she said, well, Ryan, what are you gonna do? And I said, well, LG, what should we do? And she said, well, what are you gonna do? And I said, well, I think we gotta do something. And she was like, well, what are you gonna do? And I said, well, does it put you in a tough spot if it's like a public thing? And she's like, well, what else could it be? This is an invitation from the first black lieutenant governor to create what became the 94% rally. And I see Janice and Lisa and folks in the room, we organized this thing called the Rally for the 94%, and it was a direct way to hold Governor Murphy accountable. Now, let's be honest, there were a lot of folks. He did a very good job of hiring a very diverse cabinet of black people. None of them were there, right? Many called and said, hey, look, that thing, praying for you, brother. We even held it in the church. I'm going to keep it 100%. We held it in the church. The pastor allowed us to be in the sanctuary till he learned what it was. And then Deborah Smith Gregory, he put us in the basement. Straight up. But it was one of the most powerful experiences of advocacy in a church basement that Jersey has seen recently. And we had 3 demands in the church basement. We get it done, right? Wherever we are, hush harbors, church basements, backyards, you name it. And we had 3 specific demands. One was to raise the minimum wage of $15 an hour, just happened this year. To enfranchise people on probation and parole, happened 2 years ago.
Right.
And to focus on youth prison closure and reinvestment. That's an ongoing body of work. But all of that, right, was required of us to make it so. And what I'll close here, John Harmon, and I went on. I read this. My wife would tell you last night, I was in bed. She's beautiful. I was distracted. I was reading this. I read the whole thing. It's powerful. The numbers are powerful, illuminating the stories that Dr. Anderson read from people are powerful. What is missing, though, is what we're going to do. Governor Murphy and team, what are you going to do?
Okay.
And the reality of being black in this country is that question always falls to us. So we have all we need, armed to what we need to do to hold Governor Murphy accountable, but he's on his way out the door. And it just so happens, perhaps this was intentional, perhaps this was Governor Murphy's gift to us, that he arms us with a document on the way out. And there's a governor's race, it turns out, that's happening. When is that, Mayor Brockett? Is that?
I have no idea.
I think that's next year. And I'll say this. Last thing I'll say, John Harmon. Part of New Jersey's major. I love this stuff.
I know.
Last 30 seconds. I'm supposed to. This is real truth. This is date day with my wife. We're supposed to be on a date somewhere. And I was like, I got to make a quick stop. So here's last thing. Promise you, last thing. Part of these numbers reflect the deep way in which New Jersey is segregated in every direction.
That's right.
Including at the very top.
That's right.
Ours is a state led by a white man, Governor Phil Murphy, led by another white man, Senate President Nick Scutari, and on the Assembly side, Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin. 3 white men, deep segregation at the top, which is reflected throughout the state, including in our classrooms and neighborhoods. And until we address that reality there, we'll continue to see this. But in the meantime, it's really on us to hold those folks in power accountable to all the people.
Give them a hand. Okay, now Ryan, I'll let you go because
appreciate it.
Because the historical context is very important to set the conversation. And at the end of the day, we're going to talk about where do we go from here? Because we should be just outraged every day until something changes. We have been taking this too much on the chin, too calmly. But ladies and gentlemen, it is time to forge a new paradigm, okay? So let's go to the women here. I'm going to start with Marge Perry, then we go to Dr. Anderson, and then we're going to go to Sister Shavonda, and then Luis. All right.
I think the mayor needs to leave in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Let them go. Let them go.
Okay. All right. So, the mayor has to roll out, but let's try to move it here. So, as a principal of a minority, a woman-owned business, we need to hear some of your stories about trying to win government contracts. And we're going to ask Dr. Anderson the same question. Or in between, we'll let the mayor go and then come back to Dr. Anderson. Is that okay? After March.
So, I'm going to just tell you straight up, I stay in trouble all the time because I have this discussion all the time. Number one, for every state contract I've ever won, they change the needle when I go to pre-qualify. So I just wanted you to know what happens. So when you pre-qualify, like I have to go through something called Department of Public Works for the state. If you don't have financial statements, you don't have bonding, you don't have all of this litany of paper, I can't even get to the RFP. So what did we do? Because I come out of a corporate environment, I understood to watch how it's adapting all the time, because the legislation is designed and written by the prime contractors and the developers. Because I sat on the EDA. I said, well, did the developers write this? Because nobody else has this information. I just happen to be sitting on EDA. So here's what I say, and I'm going to leave it in 5 seconds. We have to get better at saying, no, we're not going to do that. We need to do it this way. 2, we need to take our stronger minority firms to help the smaller ones. I'm working with 4 right now. They don't have financial statements. You can't even get in the system.
Or a balance sheet.
So if you don't have that, they're going to say, because it's a blank sheet when you do DPMC. They don't know if you're black, white. They don't ask that question. They ask for the requirements. Or if they do give you a possibility, they're only going to let you bid on $200,000 worth of work because you don't have all the other list of things that they asked you for. So we have to get more intentional about our side, even if it's groups that show you how to do it, who's been through it already, have classes and seminars like that so they don't get stuck in the log, because you get turned off and you get turned away. Normally, I don't get paid for 60 to 90 days. You cannot carry a $2, $3, $4, $5 million job and you're paid every 60 to 90 days. Thank goodness I know how to diversify and have monies coming in from different places all the time. So I'll stop there and just let you know that's what the backstory has to be for us to change this narrative fully. So, thank you.
So, in sum, Marsh is talking about strategic partnerships.
Yes.
We have to leave this room very intentional about being strategic and unifying with those who have the wherewithal to help us win. The chamber is one vehicle, but there's others. You have to invest in your enterprise. You have to partner, all right? We'll come back to that. Dr. Anderson? Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor.
Well, right before I walk out of here, I apologize for that. I have to go all the way to Piscataway. But I want to piggyback off the stuff that Marjorie was talking about. Number one, I think, first of all, like what she said, these are the things that don't make rallies. They're not in people's State of the City addresses. Like the things that we do in Invest Newark to have classes for individuals to get them the strength, to strengthen their balance sheet, to get them the ability to bond. Those things that happen that we invest in, right? And then the idea that people can't not be paid in 60, 70, 80 days. So we have to actually loan money up front, which is what we do. We have to loan money up front so people are able to do the business, right? And then we take the money back, in the contract. And I think ultimately the answer to some of this stuff immediately, before you get all of the wide-ranging legislation, is you have to put it in the contracts. You have to put it in the RFP. You have to put it in the contract. We're going to give you $80 million, but 10% of that has to go to local minority businesses, have to go to black business. You have to put it in the contract, which is what we do in the city. We have a Anchor Collaborative in Newark that takes all of the major institutions and corporations and tell them that they have to lift their level of procurement in the city of Newark. Newark's procurement, our own procurement, was at 3%. We lifted it to about 30%, right? A little bit over 30%, which is not where we need to be, but it's a hell of a lot larger than 3%, right? These are the things those are the type of discussions that we really need to be having. And this idea about the public bank that the governor wanted to have, which is not a retail bank, shouldn't be a retail bank, but it's an opportunity to have capital that is infused in businesses that look like ours, in contracting, in primes, in subprimes, to be able to do the work, to loan people money so they can have the balance sheet, to give them what they need so they can compete in this environment. And I would agree that you need individuals in each one of those departments to make sure that they're in fact doing this procurement. We have to fight with our own people every Friday, and every opportunity we have to fight with our own folks in Newark to make sure that they are procuring local businesses, to make sure that businesses are black and brown. We have to do that intentionally in this city. So in the state, you can imagine, if you're not doing it intentionally, what is happening, right? You can see the numbers. We have to do it intentionally. I have to talk to people, where did you buy this paper from? Yeah. When you do the catering, what company did you use to get the catering? Why are we using the same company 4 times? Why are we doing emergency contracts over and over and over again? Stop the emergency contracts. Let's bid it again. We have to talk about that very intentionally. In the city of Newark, we have to do that. So I know everywhere else, if that's not happening, we're definitely going to be on the bottom.
Thank you, Mayor. So what the mayor alluded to were best practices that should be incorporated throughout the state. And so when we engage the Murphy administration, we hope to make those recommendations and negotiate.
Okay.
To date, the administration has been very intentional. We've been engaged, and hopefully we'll come out of this in a better place. The other thing the mayor referenced was a public bank. As a banker, and we have a number of banks that are members of the chamber, we have a slightly different take on that. We believe that this can be accomplished through the EDA. As you start to create these one-off situations, you get off track of what we're trying to accomplish. The money is already diverted there. We should be able to figure this out with the EDA earmarking money to deliver on what the mayor and all of us want to see happen. So we're going to continue those discussions. So, Dr. Anderson, your experience in government contracting.
Thanks, John. Can you hear me okay? I'll just take it from the system. Simply stated, the New Jersey State Procurement System, NJ START, is trash.
Well, don't say it any more plainly than that, Doctor.
Yeah, it's
Speak with clarity.
Yeah, it is antiquated. It is not user-friendly. It's very hard to maneuver. It's not intuitive in terms of going through the steps. There's a hard time finding a manual that exists. It's hard to Google anything for it that doesn't come up from like 2013, 2003. You call the 1-800 line, and if they allow you to have, 9 options, all 9 options are filled just for you to hit that option and it to tell you to go back to the website. The process in terms of locating all of the forms that are required, the checklist can sometimes be separate from, the checklist from the actual entity or agency that you're trying to do business with. I received a contract, and I was told that, you have to go back into NJ START because it's been 6 months and so everything expires. Why after 6 months? Step into where we are now. How come I couldn't just do an attestation to just say everything is the same from 6 months ago? Just simple things like that could just, make it less cumbersome, easier. But the New Jersey START system just needs it just needs to be redone. They need something else, and it needs to be transparent. And to some of the folks that spoke and we captured their content, people actually need training on how to utilize that system and meet all of the different things that they're asking for.
Yes.
Thank you. Give her a hand. So, Shavonda and then Luis, your questions are going to kind of center on starting to get to collaborations and kind of solutions. So from the legislative perspective and or Black Caucus perspective, ways in which we can work with you, now that we've heard this disparity study and we've heard the systemic barriers to get Black people in a more equitable place, how do you envision us working with you and others to move this conversation to a better place?
Thank you, John. And to each of you, thank you for being here on a Saturday morning. Thank you for interrupting date day, but, make sure There's some roses with that.
There's some
All right.
roses, right, that's right.
And to my good friend Marge Perry, since I've met her and known her, she's been saying the same bulleted points about what needs to be done to be sure that we are incorporated into the contracting space. She's been a mentor and a coach for upscaling businesses. To my mayors, commissioners in the room, thank you for taking one-off steps to change your procurement processes so we can see that it does work on a state level. As chair of the Legislative Black Caucus, Senator Rice was at the forefront with Senator Nia Gill calling for this study to be done over 20 years ago. So when we talk history and how we got here, Senator Rice has since gone, and I can tell you, whenever I saw the governor, I saw anyone in his administration, I said this was something that was a priority for him. So if you want to honor him and remember his legacy, release the study. The study's released. We knew it was bad. We didn't know it was that bad. So we're 19 members of the Legislative Black Caucus, spanning from Cape May all the way to Hudson County, both Republican and Democrat, and we're all mad. Our job is to write legislation, amend legislation, upgrade legislation, and appropriate a $56 billion budget, which is what's on the table today. Some of the buzzwords were economics and politics. You heard the mayor say that the two, you can't have one without the other. And when we talk about wealth disparities, and thank you to the Institute for Social Justice, because on that campaign trail, we talked about the wealth disparities. We talked about housing being a key connector, but we did not necessarily talk about businesses, so now that needs to be incorporated. Two, we heard intentional. And we move with intentionality in the pandemic as a Legislative Black Caucus to work fast to make sure we had telehealth for our folks to have access to care, to make sure with the Lieutenant Governor, God rest her soul, that people were able to stay in their houses, that we suspended evictions, which was a lifesaver, that we expanded food stamps so people could have food in a pandemic, and we continue to add money. So those are real. Those are tabletop issues that we focused on. So today, I'd like to add another word to this conversation with intentional. I'm going to keep transformational, because never did anyone think since 1844 that we would restore the right to vote for persons on probation and parole. We did that too, yes, with partners in this room. I'd like to add the word aspirational. So with the word aspirational, I'd like to incorporate that into the procurement process. So that way it's not a race conversation of saying why black folks, and it's because black folks have experienced less than 1% of procurement contracts in the billions of dollars for over a 7-year period, and you don't get that time or loss of wealth back. Compounded interest, those terms we understand. So our aspiration should be to be sure that we are targeted with precision for those who may be in the medical field, the repair that needs to happen. And with that repair, we need to be hyper-focused on creating opportunities for us to work in not only construction as prime contractors, professional services, and goods. Those are the three categories that are very descriptive in how we should contract with very legal terms, a whole bunch of legalese for the lawyers in the room that we must comply with to achieve our objective. We do have neighboring states, and we'll take New York, who had an aspirational goal of 30% and they achieved it. You heard the mayor of Newark say their rate is at 30%, but they should be able to do better, but they ask questions and inquire. Today, over 100,000 persons who worked in the DEI space in positions are being let go because DEI-B is no longer popular. Affirmative action repealed by the Supreme Court. Judge Brown, Paulette Brown, who I admire, used this term when it came to reparations. She said there is no statute of limitations on us trying to regain our wealth status in the state of New Jersey. So my goal is I need the tension from each of you. I need the pull from each of you to give us the wings to put forth a legislative package of repair that includes aspirational, measurable goal setting in over the 700 different departments and authorities within the state of New Jersey that contracts. Thank you.
Thank you, and we are having conversations. We have on our task force 4 lawyers who are steeped in this, and so when we sit down with these folks, we're going to be ready to engage. But to Assemblywoman's point, we need you all to step in and not just wait to be served, right?
That's right.
We're all trying to eat. Some folks are going to be pulling the crops in, seasoning the food, setting the table, and then serving the meal. But everybody got to do something, right? I mean, everybody got to do something. There was a song back in the day that said, "This time, it's for real."
This time is for
It got to be for real, ladies and gentlemen. So, Brother Luis. And Ryan is teed up now because he's thinking about the laws and all the barriers. So when we come back to Ryan, put your seatbelts on because it's coming. So, Luis, what specific policy changes or initiatives do you believe are necessary to address the disparities identified in the study and to promote a more equitable distribution of contracts? We want to hear some solutions coming from your side.
Okay, let me give you a little bit of context. We are 2.5 million Latinos in the state of New Jersey, and we have 140,000 Latino small business owners. Entrepreneurship is the only way that we have to overcome poverty, because we don't get to the positions that we would like to. I want to address that Kerry Brosina is here from the SBDC. Our allies doesn't need to look like us. We just need people that are committed to help minorities. And she's a good example of that. They can provide the technical assistance that we can know because we don't have the capacity. Now, why the government? The government is the biggest customer in our economy. At the federal level, at the state level, the county level, we just need them to enforce that the primes subcontract us. Why? Because that doesn't need more legislation. We don't have time to wait 2 years for this to happen. But if those primes reach out to John and I and other minority chambers, we will find the right subcontractor to provide services to those primes. Those primes need to build capacity and experience in order for them to be able to do well. Because without experience, they never will be able to get an opportunity. Now, we just have a few experiences where minority business owners that made it, they don't claim the minority status anymore.
That's right.
Because they don't want to keep at 30%.
That's right.
They want to. What I experience is that those minority business owners that made it, they will keep growing because most of the contracts will go to them. We are not expecting that 140,000 businesses will get opportunities. It's a few of them that are prepared, that are ready to grow, that will get that. And now, did you know that the best economic opportunity that we have in the next 2 years, and I was almost ready to say something to the mayor just in case he become the governor, but
Go ahead, Luis.
I don't know if the World Cup is coming to New Jersey, and I'm a soccer player. The first time that I went to a World Cup was when I came here in 1994. That was 30 years ago. That's a $2 billion opportunity on a 30-day span. When the Super Bowl came here, and I was not even at the board of the Statewide Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, we only received $10,000 catering opportunity. One. Right now, if we don't get a little piece of the action, I will be mad and I will be responsible and I will be accountable for that. Because the governor is raising $150 million, and Rick, this is a message for you and big corporations. If you're giving money to them, please make sure that the conversation about that money gets spent with minority business owners happen. Don't cut the check without, and I'm picking of you because I know you and because you support us, but this is a conversation that we are having with every single corporation, is don't cut the check without making sure that the conversation happens. Now, I also want to mention a couple of things. Is any veterans in the house today? Yes? Please stand up. Thank you for your service. My family and we came from Colombia with asylum because my father was declared a military target by the guerrilla. It wasn't for the veterans. We didn't find a safe country to travel. Thank you very much. Now, we are mad because we didn't make the numbers. Just think about those that didn't make the report, like the LGTB and the veterans. We need to be in solidarity with them because they also deserve our support. The state already have a legislation that 3% of the budget is supposed to go to veterans. 0% dollars have been addressed to veterans. That's even, I get very passionate about, but it's for a good cause. Now, the other thing is when the governor announced the chief diversity officer job, I was full of joy, and nothing happened. Nothing happened because that position is supposed to have the opportunity to make things happen for us. And we get back to the report. We was not expecting the report to be good. But what we can do right now, we can enforce what it is, right? The same thing that John and Carlos and other people, when someone is trying to apply for the UC zone authorization, they need to reach out to the minority chambers. The same thing need to happen with the prime contractors. They will reach out to minorities, the minority chambers. We can make sure that they did an effort to find and to partner with small businesses, minority businesses in the state of New Jersey. Because we can do that. And if we cannot find anyone in our communities, we will tell them, you did an effort, but we don't have anyone for that specific service. The other thing is, what makes this study to look even bad is that we are compared with Philadelphia and New York, that they have the same issues and they have been doing a great job. And the other thing is, during the pandemic, a lot of minority business owners get certified because it was free and because it was required in order for us to get access to the programs through the NJEDA. I was probably the only person who cried the day that I saw that the NJEDA include the word micro businesses. Did you know that 97% of the businesses in New Jersey are micro businesses? We have less than 10 full-time employees. It's a report by AEO, a national institution. If one of every 3 micro businesses hire one more person, we will face full employment. That's the power of micro businesses. Okay. We need to get an opportunity.
I can reach you, I can't reach Ryan. That's very good. So,
John, before you move forward, I just want to thank you for that. Black Caucus did the legislation to waive the fees for registration. So it's important to know the power of the legislature and what we codify to have access. We also created the legislation for micro businesses. So we were intentional because of partnerships.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. All right, this is what we got. We got about 8 minutes. We got to go to Ryan. And then I want to get a quick response from everyone. And then we're going to take 3 questions.
This is a spiritual exercise.
3 questions from the floor. Is that okay?
This is kind of
Luis
meditation.
talked about intentional outreach with accountability. And he talked about this big international soccer tournament. But we also had a $16 billion gateway project that's federally funded. And so earlier, I'm trying to connect the dots here. Earlier, I referenced the project labor agreement at 5. President Biden's at $35 million. If we can align that $35 million carve out on that gateway project as an ask, that will open up doors of opportunities for more of us. So those are the types of intentional, deliberate actions we got to take. Okay. Brother Ryan? Get ready. How can we ensure these great recommendations are effectively implemented and monitored to bring about tangible change in contracting practices and opportunities for minority businesses and women enterprises?
So here's the thing. In 30 seconds,
I doubt it.
I got this alert on my watch from my wife who's right there, and she said, Ryan, you are that, T-H-A-T in caps, guy, meaning I went on. That's love in action. That's feedback. Accountability. So clap it up for her. You know, I want to underscore Assemblywoman Sumter's point, which picks up on the late Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver's point, that we have legislators in the building who are pushing these conversations, but what they also need is a push from us on the outside to hold them accountable on the inside. And I think that's where we find our power. You know, I was just asking Dr. Anderson when this report was released. It was released, she said, in late January, after 7 years. And the state itself hasn't held any public forums on it. So it was almost as if it was sort of released, and then it just sat there, and thankfully the chamber has picked it up, and this is their 3rd conversation like this. So what I would urge is that we stand together to ensure that the work that gets done, that the chamber has started, continues, and that it's felt inside the halls of power, at the city council level, to the mayor's point, up to the state legislature.
Oh, did you do that?
All right. He showed us he could do it.
Women's History Month, let's go.
Yeah. I love you women. You are so effective. Don't leave us, please, to our own devices. All right, this is great, but we got to keep this going. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to come back to you, Ryan. I'm going to start with Dr. Anderson, go to Sister Shavonda, Dr. Perry, and then over here to Brother Luis. We need commitments. That's what Ryan kind of led us. What can we expect from you? And then, and we'll get to you guys later, but up from these folks here, what can we expect?
Yeah, thanks, John. And so, as I stated during the presentation, the African American Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey has stood up the Disparity Study Task Force. I am co-chairing with the lovely Philanda Nixon. We are meeting every 2 weeks. We have this strategy that we're going to be reaching out to for exactly what we've been talking about in terms of keeping this at the forefront, keeping the pressure on. And so we invite you that when we send you that letter template and ask you to identify your legislators and send it to them, that you do so. When we send you that petition with the recommendations and ask that you sign on as individuals and or as businesses, because it's power in numbers, when we present these recommendations and say, and these are all of the people that are behind us and supporting us, we're asking you to do that. And we remain open to the conversation. We're inviting you to use your connections to continue to facilitate these type of conversations across the state of New Jersey. We remain here, we're open, and you know, we need you. And so please feel free to stay in touch and let's keep this going.
Great.
And thank you. That advocacy does work. A couple things that I want to uplift. In 2019, we added to be sure that targeted efforts were for classification of veterans and servicemen and women. In 2019, in the report, they fared better than Black people. Targeted, intentional classification and not a protected classification. We created it in the legislature. The other piece, we need to consider working together, formal hearings in the legislature. These are great, but we need to lean on the speaker. You heard the name, Craig Coughlin, the Senate President, Nick Scutari, and I work with them daily because this is about economics. We need to put it in the State House where we write and draft legislation, where we can codify and make it the rule of the land for the state of New Jersey with all of your support. So it's important that you show up. We need to invest in the systems because I've heard that over and over and over again. I've been in the legislature for 12 years and it predates me. We have an antiquated system. Why are we reloading the same information over and over and over again? And I haven't met a business owner yet who is not busy trying to run their day-to-day, chase new business, and have to continue to spend hours in a state portal to navigate that system. And those systems should talk to each other. They should talk to each other so you're not putting in for the same type of information, bonding, your basic demographic information over and over. And that attestation makes perfect sense. We use it for other parts of government, so it's not unknown to us. And then we need to open up the RFP, RFQ process, because for years, those have been locked, so you can't get new vendors in to even apply. And when it opens, then the system locks. Because true story, I have a business in Patterson in my district. EDA opened up some new money. They applied within 48 hours. After I got the information, I sent it to them. In 48 hours, they tried to go into the portal. It was gone, and it's first come, first served, portal locked. Can't enter anything. So how are you going to be on a wait list? And I had just sat through a whole hearing on how this thing was the greatest thing since banana nut bread. So we as a government need to reduce the barriers and really partner with the residents of this state for business opportunities. And lastly, the report shows that there are businesses within the region that could have participated in contracting in all the different levels. The report states that, and still there were more out-migration of contracts than contracts to Black folks. Thank you.
So I'm going to, thank you, give her a hand. I'm going to come back to you, Assemblywoman, and ask you a question. So I'm going to pivot here, take a little prerogative. But the other areas we need to think about are these cooperatives and state contracting systems. And sometimes they're so convenient for some folks to just plug and play versus trying to get more opportunities out. So those things are on the table for discussion and revamping. So, Assemblywoman, how critically important is it to get in front of the legislatures in this budget cycle?
Oh, that, I told you, right now it's projected to be a $56 billion budget. When I started, it was $32 billion. Wow. It's projected to be a $56 billion budget. And if we're talking about system upgrades, if we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion officers in multiple departments, which is also one of the legislative remedies, because SDA, School Development Authority, does not know what is in Treasury. Treasury doesn't know what's in the Department of Labor. Department of Labor doesn't know what's in the Department of Transit. They don't talk. So it really is incumbent upon us to make sure that there's one wheelhouse where we can navigate these contractors to, so then we can be sure that we're aspirational in awarding these contracts to move the needle with intention for advancement economically.
Fantastic. Uh-oh, yeah, I'm getting down to the warning light. The warning lights are blinking on me now.
Okay, so I'm just going to say this. I lost my first $1 million in the city of Newark because I was undereducated and unaware. I went back and got my MBA here at NJIT. I can go back. And I'm saying this for a specific reason, is that we're a little bit undereducated because their needle keeps moving.
Back to that.
So I'm using that. So went back, did my MBA, worked on my civil engineer degree because they were brighter and faster and sharper than I was in the field. I lost $1 million. And when you lose $1 million, you should be into bankruptcy mode. So, other part, this is where my partnerships come in. And I just have to say this to our Latina and African American crowd. We must work together even if you don't like each other. Just do it.
Get this money.
Just do it. The Republicans can't stand each other, but they work together like this, and they get it done. We have to get away from, I don't like, I don't think, I don't do. No, it doesn't work. And I'll use Gary for an example, or Tanisha. If he's doing $40 million and you're doing $370,000, go talk to him. You have to partner up. We will not be able to move the disparity needle at all if we don't partner up, and that person should not be equal. They should be doing a little bit better so that you qualify the time that you spend with them so that you can pull out all the assertions that you need. Now, let me tell you, every time a new governor comes in, the legislation changes depending on who the people are helping the legislators with the field. So you have to understand the needle's constantly moving. And our change now, you may be good for the first 6 months, and they have a new set of regulations 6 months later. We don't know who the new governor is going to be. And if he's a Republican governor, everything we're talking about today is going to go wash down the toilet again. Because they're going to twist it, and they're going to add new language to it, and it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. So that's my words, is that we must work together. We must continue to educate ourselves on our own. It may cost you a few dollars, but you got to do it. You don't have to get degrees today. You can go certification and learn finance, understand the balance sheet, understand where your burn rate is, understand the things. So when you go in and you tell your accountant, I need a financial statement that will help me get a state contract, you understand what you need to tell him so that he can make sure that you look your best financial picture. Thank you.
I love it. Woo! One thing that is often said in the black community, I don't do politics, right? And if you don't do politics, politics gonna do you, right? So we need to change the mindset. Let's get this money, ladies and gentlemen, right? It's not personal.
It's not personal.
You want to team up to win. Let's not be stuck on stupid, because you know what? Poverty does not feel good nor look good. Let's be aspirational about getting as much money as we can and not losing our mind with that, all right? All right. Luis?
No, but I just want to mention that when I attend the previous event, the one Republican candidate came and he want to talk. And the first thing that he mentioned is, I lose because I didn't include minorities on my board and because I didn't consider the minority vote. One thing, as I agree with John, is we are very polite and we are very respectful, right? But we have the power because each citizen has one vote, and it's a lot of us. If we work together, we can make those changes happen. Now, going back to what the NJEDA, and that was the only agency that surprised us during the pandemic. They used to do 500 loans a year. They did 70,000 because they understood that was not about a large amount of money, was about a small amount of money, but very often, right? And they use technology. But guess what? In our community, the digital gap is real. what the Assemblywoman described is we have customers that we tell them, and we will need to type the application for them, right? Now, but the other thing that they did is when they saw that the program was oversubscribed, they request more money, and they honor a lot of those requests. It's really important to understand that when the government put a program in place, we need to go and ask for the program, but we need to identify as minorities if we want them to keep working for us. Because if we go there and we don't identify, they will have the assumption that we are not interested. And believe me, that happened with a program called NJSIP for electric vehicles. And when they saw 45, they initially was like 11 million, and they increased that to 45 million. But they saw that 45% of the people who applied for that program happened to be minorities. That works. If we put the effort and the time, we will be able to attract the results. But I insist, we as working together is really important. We, as a chambers, we don't have the same luxury as other organizations because we don't have a policy person in training. Yes, yes. But other chambers do lobby more than us. We need to work.
Yeah, you're right. You're so good.
I'm enjoying this, Ryan.
30 seconds, Ryan.
30 of them. Look, the brother needs a text from my wife right now. I do want to lift up Dr. Anderson's point about intentionality because what strikes me about this conversation is we're not talking about scarcity of resources.
That's right.
Right? Very often, the thing you hear when you ask for something is, we don't have the money for that. The money is there, and we just want a proportional share of what's already ours. And so I just want to thank Councilman Crump for hosting this conversation.
Yes, thank you, Councilman.
And for the Chamber for hosting its third conversation. And so our commitment at the Institute for Social Justice is we want to join Assemblywoman Sumter in hosting a hearing in the state legislature, but we also know that contracts happen at all levels of government. And so we heard the mayor say that in a plurality black city, he's having to push his team to ensure that contracting is done with our folks. So I would encourage us to think about in the cities and counties where we live. I'm looking at the current, he's technically the past, I call him the current Commissioner, President Wayne Richardson. We should be thinking about how do we hold hearings in city councils where we live and the counties where we live. We have a tool that is this document now. So we don't need, no further research and writing is necessary, right? We've done enough. It was 7 years in the making. And now comes the question, how do we use this tool to hold folks accountable with intentionality at each level of government, in the cities where we live, in the counties where we live, and working with the leader of the Black Legislative Caucus to do it at the state level as well.
I love it. All right. Give them all a round of applause. Now, to the audience. We want questions. We don't want dissertations. Okay? Because I can handle this, because I can see you and we say, nope, that's not going to. So we have a microphone here. We have a microphone here. Okay.
Get close.
We can only take 3. All right, we'll take. We got a woman over here, got a guy, got 2 women. Okay, 2 women, 1 guy. We're going to be here networking, having lunch, so you don't have to leave. But we want to try to get some stuff done in this little bit of time. Questions? Ladies first.
Oh, hello, everyone. I have several questions, but I'm going to...
Only one?
I'm only going to ask one. I'm only going to ask one. A lot of the data shows that a significant number of the entrepreneurs are really micro-entrepreneurs. They're very small. Simultaneously, they're likely, given what we know and the rise in number, they're likely to be young people. Right? And so as this conversation takes place, I would love if you could talk a little bit about what this means for rising minoritized populations, Black micro-entrepreneurs, and how do they make their way into, 1, knowing, and 2, into becoming a part of a constituency that can elevate these issues.
I'll go first. Let me just say, that's why the African American Chamber is a great resource for you to join for the advocacy. That's number one. Number two, most people don't know how to scale their business. If they're a micro business, they're money in, money out, money in, money out. So there has to be a plan. So you know what your barriers is called a SWOT analysis, so that you can look at where you need. Then that can help you to identify who you need to maybe perhaps partner with, because you can stay a micro business for 30 years. So when we scaled at my organization, I really sat down with some thought leaders from all over. I went up to Dartmouth for classes. I graduated Harvard because I didn't know how to scale. And it's called boutique businesses at their level. So you have to figure out what the barriers of entry are for you. And most of the time it's access to capital. All right. So what they do is become like this in a micro business. Really, we should be looking at mergers and acquisitions. How do we buy a business? Because that will help the growth. But we don't think that big and globally. But I'm saying if you want to grow a business, they have to look at mergers and acquisitions so that they can eventually scale their business so it has the benchmarks to sell it. So you don't get stuck in this, because this burns out the micro businesses. They get very tired. Employment is terrible now to keep employees going and engaged. So that's just my thoughts about it, that you have to partner, look at mergers and acquisitions for entrepreneurship so you can come out of the micro category and go into the scale category.
Let me add a little bit to that, right? You have to be in the ecosystem where the action is occurring,
yes,
right? And so I would encourage you and others to consider the African American Chamber, the Hispanic Chamber. That's where the commerce is taking place. That's where resources, opportunities, and information are happening. It's happening every day. So what often happens is black people are traveling this way, and the action is traveling this way. The chamber brings the intersection, yes, to make the transformation. So that would be my suggestion. Let's go over here. Next question.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Bacarizo. I am the president of the Newark Hispanic Commission here for the city of Newark. My question is, I know Brother Ryan mentioned there's no lack of resources. It's just intentionality and aspiration. And you guys mentioned that the World Cup will bring $2 billion to the state. The Gateway Project will bring $19 billion to the state, and that will equal about $21 billion. That means that we have $6 billion that we can get and aspire to RSPs. We know that the Gateway Project is already hiring people for their projects. We know that World Cup is already hiring people for their projects and activities. So the call to action, where's the call to action to make sure that we deserve or we fight for the $6 billion? Because education, empowerment, and advocacy doesn't happen just because we're here. We have to start fighting those things in the community so we can get our money back.
So I'm going to take a piece of that, and then I'm going to turn it over to Ryan. One of the asks that we have put on the street is a moratorium on all non-emergency contracts up to $5 million. Now, if you respond to the Assemblywoman's ask by bombarding the legislator saying this is something you want to see happen, that's the only way it's going to happen. Otherwise, it's an aspirational gesture on our part. And the reason I say $5 million is because $5 million is where our PLA level right now exists in the state. So that's what we have to ask and or demand what we want. Otherwise, we're just having a nice conversation. Ryan, you want to respond to that?
Ryan, it's your turn now.
I'm getting, you can't hear, but I'm getting summoned by Marjorie Perry, who, I just got to say this because a couple of points ago, in the spirit of Women's History Month, that expression, Reverend Eric Dobson, smooth with the roughness, I think you might have caught her when she said, I lost my first $1 million. Yeah. Did y'all peep that? First million. Yeah, no, so I don't want to miss that. I'm not evading the question, but I just want to miss. I'm up here with some bad sisters, y'all. I swear to God. Listen. Yeah. I mean, I think the heart of your question is the call to action, which is really the broader call to action for this group, right? So it would be a shame if we were here And we took all this in from Dr. Anderson, and we left without a clear plan of what we are each prepared to do. And so it just in my lane around the policy work that we do, I'm really attracted to the idea of hearings, because I think the best way to get accountability is to start in the places where we live. And I reiterate, the city councils where we live, the county commissions, and working with the assemblywoman on the state hearing. Otherwise, this tool will remain sort of dormant. I mean, a cynical view of this is that after 7 years, the state released a document under the cover of darkness in hope that we wouldn't do anything with it, and then when folks are running for re-election or whatever, they can say, this is what they did concretely. One of the pieces we'll lift up, because I see her, and I've been meaning to get to this, Dr. Janice Johnson-Diaz, lifted up the context in which this work is made even more difficult. So she sent me this article, give me a second here, that talks about how a federal court recently ruled that minority businesses must be made open to all folks. So there were a group of white plaintiffs who challenged a minority business or the set-aside program, saying they didn't have access to it, and the court required them to open it up. Now, here's the thing. These attacks on the work we're trying to do here have always been, and I think this speaks to the strategy needed to make sure that folks remain or become intentional in the way that we've been thinking about. Like, this should not deter us from the work. It should just give us more sense about the context in which we now do it.
John, let me add something.
Yes, sir.
The announcement of the World Cup happened a month ago, but the committee started working 4 years ago.
That's right.
Sometimes, if we just pay attention when the headline hit the newspaper or the TV show, we lost. Why? Because those 4 years is where everything happened. The request for information happened. All the details already happened. Now we get excited, but we don't get that piece of action because we miss that portion. That's when we need to build capacity and experience. And the African American Chamber of Commerce and the statewide Hispanic, we offer the bonding readiness class, and we offer everything that you need to be prepared and ready. But the experience need to be from the business, because not every business on our community want to grow. It's very often that we meet a business owner and they say, I don't want more headaches, I don't want more employees, that's what happened. We try to focus on those who have high growth potential, because our time and energy is more useful if we focus on them than if we try to help everybody else.
Can't boil the ocean. You want to say something?
No.
Oh, okay. I said 3 questions. Why do I have 2 people over here waiting?
Because we don't listen.
All right. And one is on the board, so I may have to go to her, right?
Of course.
Yes.
All right. My name is Ia Shakoya Karaday. I am a GC and emerging developer here in New Jersey. I'm also the New Jersey representative for the National Association of Black Women in Construction. So these disparities touch me deeply, and just this morning I was having a call with other women across the country, and we are all looking at disparity studies in each state and making comparisons, so we are doing the work. I want to ask a question in regards to how do we continue to build capacity in the same way that these same companies get these contracts over and over again. How? Because they're legacy companies. The transfer of education and the pathways are passed down on the golf course and at the dinner table. I recently attended the Monarch Housing's BIPOC developers, where we had an opportunity to talk to each other, the high level and the newbies. I was also able to become bonded through the African American Chamber of Commerce. How do we continue to build our table talks? How do we continue to build capacity between each other and pass down the knowledge that we have? We don't always have $1 million to make 10 million, and we don't always have the opportunity to go and get these degrees and things to be able to compete with people who basically had their business handed to them because they was the nephew of somebody else or so and so.
Okay.
Yep. So
that's the question?
That's the question.
All right, Dr. Anderson. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. Some of the best practices that I talked about today and some of the work that actually does happen in the chamber does that. Support in terms of outreach and education, that coming from the administration as well as, support to the chambers across the state to be able to provide that type of assistance to members as well. I think that organically within AACC&J and probably other chambers, we look to do that. And so if you have ideas in terms of additional cohorts for your particular industry, then you should bring them and talk about it. The intentionality starts with us as well, right? So as I have a public health and healthcare consultancy firm, so I have personal goals and intentionality for the work that I do. Every contractor that supports my business, my accountant, my bookkeeper, my social media manager, they're all Black women. And that is intentional. And in addition to them being able to support me the way that they do, there's also this unspoken piece that they got me and that they want me to succeed. And that goes so far with that. But beyond that, when I'm having client meetings, I'm also, when my clients identify needs, my personal goal, most people are looking for at least 3 bids, 3 quotes. My personal goal is to make sure that one of the chamber members is one of those 3. If I can get more to be a part of that, I do. But I reach back into our VP of memberships and say, Mary, who do we have that can do this? Get their names, their information, and I'm floating them to my clients. And so all of that intentionality is individual. It is, using your membership, bringing, if there's something else that you see that you would like to do, bring it. We got several board members here, hands up, right, looking for this information all the time. And so, just use your resources and make the ask.
So joint ventures, if you look at the tunnel project, Skanska, Pelmar, et cetera, that's building capacity. They can't carry it. Joint ventures, when I did 5 schools here in Newark, we joint ventured with Bovis Lend Lease at the time. I had to partner with them because we didn't have enough back office support to do the scalable work that they had, and I was determined to work on those 5 schools here. Joint venture, joint venture, joint venture. Partnering, that means everything on your side because the big guys aren't even doing it by themselves anymore. They are joint venturing and partnering. Essex County, the jail, joint venture partnership. So look at that, who that might be. It may not always look like someone like me, but that's okay because you want to build that relationship through your network. And there's a lot of Black, white, and brown in the chamber that you can meet for these big contractors. And Turner's always joint venturing. Always joint venturing. Scants is always looking to joint venture if that's how you want to scale your business.
So when you look at companies like Turner Construction, the largest construction company in the world, nobody has a tool belt on.
That's right.
They manage the job. They get the job and then they hire people and they take their piece and let everyone else take the risk. So you got to think smarter, right? You have an idea, you don't have the wherewithal to do it, get partners and everybody eats, right?
Everybody.
Tammy and Garth, you guys.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, so she's going to ask the question, one question?
No, I don't have he has a question. I have a comment.
Okay.
So I just want to thank everyone for being here. My name is Tamisha Smith. I am the Vice Chair of the African American Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey. I also chair Business and Governmental Affairs. We had a question in the audience earlier on how do you get involved and how do you get these opportunities. And as John Harmon mentioned, you have to be part of the ecosystem. At the Chamber of Commerce, we fully believe that the success of the chamber is directly interlinked with its members. So this year, we are taking an initiative with our new board of directors to be able to provide access to bid alert services to our members and also provide training courses in conjunction with the EDA and the small business development centers to provide trainings on how to prepare and respond to local, state, and county bid opportunities. So again, I encourage you in your participation with the African American Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Okay. My name is Garth Nahr. I'm the CEO of Avatar Tech. We're a full-service broadband design and construction company located right here in downtown Newark. We've done a lot of work in the space, and that has led me to try to win work locally throughout the state. One of the things that I've recognized, and Dr. Anderson, you mentioned the bidding process and collecting 3 bids, is that most of the department heads do not want to go through that process. It's cumbersome, they can make mistakes, and then there's usually a lot of questions afterwards and contesting of the winner, right? So what I find is that a lot of companies, what a lot of the departments are doing is that they're going to cooperative, and they're directly giving $1 million plus contracts to companies that are on cooperative. So I say, okay, I've been watching NJ Start, looking for this RFP to come out that never comes out. And then I say, okay, well, maybe that's why it's not coming out, because they're just going right to cooperative. So then the next question is, well, how do I get on cooperative? So I start to look to get on cooperative, and then they're like, oh, well, there's 2 weeks in August where we'll open up the window, and if you're sponsored by someone in the cooperative, you can get on the cooperative, and all of these hoops, right? So essentially, so when I look at the cooperative list, there's Hunterdon County's got one, Union County's got one, and there's a bunch of different cooperatives where these purchases can just happen right away. And I already know from the department level, even if they have the intention of working with minority businesses, they will go that route because it's safer, right?
Question.
Okay. So the question is, is there any plan to address the cooperative situation? Why aren't there any minorities included in the cooperative, in any of these cooperatives? And if they're not going to let minorities into the minority businesses into the cooperatives, is there any plan to create a minority cooperative so that purchasing can work with these companies?
So Garth, we have that on our agenda to engage the government about cooperatives.
Excellent.
And the goal is to have the best strategy to get us the best possible return. So that is on the list, as well as the whole state contracting process. Excellent. I'm saying this for the second time today, we're going to do it.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
We got you, brother.
Okay, I also want to add okay.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, I want to also put this as a challenge to our cities that are interested in making sure that their constituents and their businesses and their constituents have an opportunity to also think about forming cooperatives, because in the state of New Jersey, we honor a cooperative from Houston and Galveston, Texas, right? So if we can...
So why don't you write up, no, I'm not being disparaging here. Give me a summary of specifically what you would like us to put forward, and we'll take that up.
Okay.
Send it to me. You know how to get in touch.
Yeah, we've been talking about it.
Write it up. Write it up, right? And we will bring it forward in the discussions with the governor's office and our legislators to see how we could, but at the end of the day, we know that the cooperatives and the state contracting process is benefiting a select few, and largely out-of-state companies, right?
Correct.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We got you. You're on the record. All right. We're going to move. We want to thank the panelists.
Thank you.
Right? And I want to say this. Louise?
You say things that
to live. You haven't been this.
I follow instructions.
Louise ready to eat, man. Come on. All right, Louise. Stay here with me a little longer. I'm going to hold you now. So last night, I heard from Congressman Payne, who could not be here today, but he wanted you all to know that he's all in to support with this effort. So we're looking forward to working with him. And in the room today, we have a candidate for the U.S. Senate, Andy Kim in the back. I want to acknowledge him. Right? I mean, he's here.
Yes.
There's a lot of folks that are not here, all right? I want you to remember that. You want to bless the food? Okay, I'm a decrease. Yeah, I'm a decrease. Thank you all.
So we're going to wrap it up. Let me say thank you to the panelists. First, thank you to all of you who are here, those who are watching live stream. As I said earlier, it's this conversation. This is a moral obligation for us to be engaged in this and what needs to be done in our future. I want to thank all the panelists. Well, first of all, let me thank Ryan Haygood from Institute of Social Justice, New York Institute of Social Justice. Let me thank John Harmon and Dr. Anderson and Ferlanda, because, you know, I appreciate all that you all are doing in our community and what's going on. And really, if it wasn't for those two organizations, we probably wouldn't be here right now. So I want to personally say thank you to you all. Marge, I've known you for a long time, and we've had some deep conversations, and I appreciate you being here. And the Assemblywoman, I'm so thankful that you were able to join us. We know that you are a champion for us down in Trenton and all over, and thank you so much for what you do and continue to do. And Louise, my new friend, I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing, because it's a collective. We can't do this on our own, as has been said by the panelists. We all need to do this together. And the stronger, what's the expression with the hand in the fist or the fingers in the fist? You know, one doesn't do it, five will do it. Let's get it together and let's do it. I would be remiss if I don't thank my staff, because, you know, they make me look good. So my chief of staff, James Blaney's in the back. You can wave, James. Walter Bryant, Kenny Watkins, and the two young ladies, I can't see them, but Cynthia Rodriguez and Brittany Anderson, thank you so much for all you. I know I was a pain in the behind the last few weeks to get this done, but thank you so much. I also want to thank a few volunteers who came out. Dr. Tia Cherry, who was holding the mic on this end, she is the educational chair for the NAACP Oranges. And is it Maplewood? Oranges and Maplewood? I think it is. Oranges and Maplewood, thank you. NAACP, Minister Takel Halley. I want to thank Angela Garrison, because this space, she helped make sure from NJIT that this space was available. And even last minute, we were like, how are we going to set this up? She was there to get it done. You know, if you were here at 9 o'clock this morning, you would have been like, good Lord. But we got it all together, and it turned out wonderfully well. I hate to say I don't want to miss anybody. You know, my mayor who was there, I mentioned him. Okay. My mayor is my mayor. As long as he wants to be my mayor, he's my mayor. And he does, Raz J. Baraka does some wonderful things, and I'm always thankful and astounded by all that he does. I want to just mention Adrian Council from Positive Community over here, who's here. And I'd just be remiss if I don't mention the National Action Network was also part of sponsorship, and Reverend Steffi Bartley. So thank you, everybody, for coming out. You know, we have marching orders here. Intentionality, intentionality, intentionality. And what did we say? What do we do now? That was quiet in this room when I said that. What do we do now? I hope people understand and are thinking about it. What we do now is what we do the minute I say y'all dismissed. We start working. Eat some lunch, talk to some people here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm sure some of the panelists aren't going anywhere. I want to thank you all for being here. I know, and I will end in saying thank you again, and John will wrap it up.
Yeah, so I could do that from here. I just want to thank the panelists, thank all the sponsors and all of you for coming out. This is one of the most important things that I've experienced in my lifetime. And we cannot make this just an emotional exchange. This must be a transformational moment, right? Now, April 17th, if you go to AACCNJ.com, we're holding our annual State of Black New Jersey. We're going to continue this conversation there. But in the meantime, please keep your ears and eyes open for announcements about hearings, et cetera, et cetera. We have to get connected. We have to get unified. And we have to deliver for the next generation. That's our obligation today. God bless you all, and thank you for coming.
One more thing I'm going to say is let's make sure we have those uncomfortable conversations with the leadership down in Trenton. They're not uncomfortable to us, they're uncomfortable to them. but we need to have those. So thank you again. God bless the food, because I was told I need to do that. Enjoy the meal. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And let's take a quick picture down here at the,
Over here?
right here, yeah.
We'll get a picture over here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed the Councilman Wyatt from Plainfield.